Hey, welcome to the Pharmacy Residency Podcast. Remember the Pharmacy Podcast Network. We've got Keaton Higgins on, who is the TPA Fellow. TPA is the Tennessee Pharmacists Association, or is it Pharmacy?
Pharmacists.
Pharmacists Association. And he's doing his fellowship now. We met when he was an APPE student or intern. I feel like you were a summer intern, but were you an APPE student at Iowa Pharmacists Association?
I was an intern after my P2 year. I did a 12-week executive internship with the Iowa Pharmacy Association as well. Yep.
Okay. And did you do an appy? I don't know that you.
I didn't do an APPE at IPA, but I did have the chance to do an APPE at the American Pharmacy Association in Washington, D.C.
That's right. You went national. Okay, good.
Yep.
All right. So lots of experience. But let's just kind of first get to the kind of first part of things, which is just in your own words, what's the difference between a residency and fellowship? Why does someone go toward residency and why does someone go toward fellowship?
Yeah, it's a great question, Tony. Thanks for answering it. And I think the first thing I want to kind of clarify is that the word fellowship versus residency is not kind of an end all be all. There are some similar opportunities within the association space, and others that do call it a residency instead of a fellowship. But for me, the biggest the difference is comes down just to logistics. A fellowship in my position and similar ones within the association world just helps really kind of differentiate it from a typical clinical residency. So with that, we're not accredited by ASHP. That comes with some pros and cons as everything does. But for me, the pros there are we're not bound to the same requirements as other typical ASHP accredited residencies that would be in a typical hospital, community, or clinical setting. That allows for us to have a lot more flexibility in the learning environment opportunities that we can give to me and my other postgraduate training pharmacists in the similar roles. So it allows for a lot more flexibility and things like that. The biggest decision going into this is we in my position I have no direct patient care, and that's a big
Okay.
kind of pathway you have to decide to go on depending on if you want to take on a role like this. There are similar programs in other states that do allow for maybe one day in a community pharmacy setting and then 4 days in the association setting. So there is flexibility within that as well. And then another thing I like to just mention, if it is a big distractor, a distractor away from these type of opportunities, I do have almost every weekend free. So if I want to, I can easily pick up shifts at a local hospital or community pharmacy and things like that. So that's just kind of the baseline here. And I'd love to dive into any more details you'd love to learn know about, Tony.
Okay. Well, let's start with maybe a contrast because I feel like someone might consider I think HISPAL, HSPAL, the
Yep.
Health System Pharmacy Administration Leadership
Yep.
Resident, which is generally 2 years if I know it right, where it's PGY1, which is mostly clinical,
Mhm.
PGY2, which is mostly administration. Can you contrast those two for me?
Yeah, so I think actually, um, uh, besides students that had the great opportunities that I had during pharmacy school that set me up for a good association experience, postgraduate PGY1, PGY1, PGY2 graduates, pharmacists are actually really well situated to do a fellowship within association management as well. Because again, as I mentioned, there's no direct patient care, and I'm obviously not in a hospital setting or even a pharmacy setting. It's more of an office-based setting, but this if you go through your HS PAL or any admin experience during your residency, and you really pick up on those things like, oh, I really do like the policy. I really do like the management side of things. This is another chance for you to dive deeper into those aspects while not being bound to a hospital or a pharmacy setting as well. For me, I was considering HS PALs or community based admin and leadership programs as well, but through my experiences, I really just love the association world and the work that we were able to do. And I really wanted to a big stepping stone for me was realizing that your postgraduate experience should be about something you want to more or less specialize in, or something that you want to gain a deeper background understanding. And for me, that was I wanted that background and the deeper understanding of the association world and the work that we can do. I like to tell people that I don't work in a pharmacy, obviously, but I get the chance to work on pharmacy and get to work on advancing pharmacy. So if those things really speak to you during a residency, even a typical PGY1 or even an HSPAL or community-based admin, this is really an opportunity to dive in deeper into those things that you really enjoyed. Again, not being strapped to a hospital or a community pharmacy setting. So that's kind of how I made my decision, and we've had successful PGY1 residency pharmacists come into an association space and thrive in those roles once they identified those passions throughout their residencies as well.
So could you say, although you went straight from graduating to fellowship, uh, and I think back at IPA, I saw someone do PGY1 to
Mhm.
fellowship. Um, would you say that fellowship for some people might be, and I'm not saying it's a PGY2 accredited by ASHP under, those guidelines, but I'm just
Mhm.
saying as that second year of subspecialty, because what I'm hearing
Yeah.
is residency, especially PGY1, is to become a general practitioner. Maybe we say BCPS. And then that PGY2 or second year
Mhm.
is specializing. So you're specializing in is I guess you're talking about a very narrow band when you talk about the actual associations, but I feel like there's a tremendous transfer of what you can do after an association experience because of
Mhm.
all the types of people you work with and around. So let me start here. When we think of a residency that has a single person as the resident, that's tends to be a bit of a lonely situation. But you are not in that kind of situation. How many people are actually at TPA?
So that's a great question, and I want to touch on a few things you mentioned there, but I'll start off by answering your final question there. This year, we are lucky enough, and I'll talk more about some of our grants that we're working on. But with our grant processes with TPA, we were able to hire two executive fellows for this year. So it's myself and
Oh, there are
another
two of
man.
you.
Yep, there are two of us for this year. It is out of or it is unordinary to have two of them, but we have been successful in some of our grant opportunities, which is another great thing about the association world. It is me, another executive fellow who's a pharmacist, and then at TPA, we're really lucky to work with a team of four additional pharmacists as well. Our CEO or executive director is a pharmacist, and then we have several other staff members that are also pharmacists. So it's a really great inclusive environment. We're kind of like that small family. We work together. We all wear different hats, and we work together very well. A lot of collaboration. So yes, I mean, you could sit there and say I'm one of two fellows, but I really do feel like it's a really great opportunity to really immerse yourself in so many different aspects. And then kind of going off of that, as you mentioned, I one of my favorite questions I get asked by students or people that may be interested in these type of opportunities is like, what does it set you up for? And so I kind of started off by mentioning what you said is PGY1 sets you up to be a practitioner within a typical pharmacist,
Hmm.
and then you do a PGY2 in oncology or cardiology. You're probably going to work in that space in that type of space for probably quite a while after you finish those because that's what you wanted to do and that's what your training sets you up to do.
Hmm.
I love association managed experiences, whether that be an internship like I did in API, like other students can do either at the state or national level, or even in the fellowship. That you it's not really going to funnel you towards one thing, as you mentioned. You obviously get the experience understanding the inner workings of an association and nonprofit organizations, but we also our job is to interact with the key stakeholders across the state or across the nation, whether that be our volunteer leaders that are working in all sorts of different practice settings as pharmacists, whether that be third party payers or insurance companies, PBMs. We also work with departments of health. We also work with any other entity that really touches healthcare within Tennessee or any other state associations that have these opportunities. So on a daily basis, we're interacting with so many pharmacists and healthcare leaders that it just exposes myself and other people in these positions just so many different areas of pharmacy that aren't necessarily taught in the pharmacy classroom, and it just gives you an opportunity to build those healthy relationships with them, to get to understand them, and then maybe throughout your experience, again during your internship or your rotation or your fellowship, maybe you realize that maybe the nonprofit world is not for you, but since you have these opportunities, you already have these networks of pharmacy leaders that can help you kind of find those different areas that you are interested in that you wouldn't have had experience with if it wasn't for the fellowship or a similar experience.
Yeah, I think that one of the fears that students have is for all of their life they've been like, this is the curriculum. If you want to do this major, then you take these classes, and for pharmacy school you certainly have electives, and then PGY1 leads to PGY2 leads to specialty. But what I'm hearing you say is that while fellowship might be more of the I hate to make it liberal arts, but let's say the liberal arts of things where you're learning a lot about everything, and then you
Mhm,
also have your specialty space. That in the same way, I was just it's funny. I was just on LinkedIn and I saw one of my classmates who I wrestled with was a journalism major, and he ended up as a physician. I was an English major. I ended up as a pharmacist, and then somebody else ended up, I was a history major and ended up as a physician. So what I'm hearing is don't worry about the job after, it'll take care of itself. And one other thing is that I feel like you're actually not as pigeonholed. I hate to use that word, but if you do cardiology PGY2, there just are not a lot of cardiology PGY2
mhm.
jobs. And so you're probably a lot more job bound, and you're not going to have maybe as many opportunities if you have a certain place you want to live. Do you want to tell me a little bit about Nashville? First of all, my wife did get to do the APHA appy in
Mhm.
DC. I'm from Baltimore, and that was kind of cool. She did it during the APHA meeting, so that was kind of a neat time to do it. And then we have visited Nashville, and we only got to see it for 3 days, but we loved it. Can't wait to go back. Can you tell me a little bit about the place? Because I think sometimes we underemphasize the place because a lot of people do get jobs in the state that they end up doing their fellowship or residency.
Yeah, so I would say that's another great question. So for me, being born and raised in Iowa all my life, I was pretty, bound and determined to receive, some type of opportunity outside of the state of Iowa, just to, get my feet out, get my feet wet, and explore, and really, dedicate my time to figuring out what I'm passionate about, and where I was passionate about, and who I was passionate about serving. So for me, it was just the perfect storm of everything that lined up for being Nashville, and TPA being the perfect scenario for me. It's been great. Nashville itself, I mean, one of the fastest growing cities in the country. I like to tell people is if you're bored in Nashville, it's your own fault. There's something to do. There's
Yeah.
always something to do, always something going on, whether it be from sporting events, or music and theater, or anything you can think of, great restaurants. But I think maybe to hopefully diminish any concern about that is Nashville can be crazy. I think most big cities can have, that crazy traffic. For me, so for TPA, our physical office building is located on the outer skirts of Eastern Nashville. So, and I also live in that area. So instead of fighting crazy typical big city traffic, I have a 10-minute drive on the same road to work every day, 10 minutes back. And it's really, I live in a nice and quiet neighborhood. But if I do want to go down to, to have the fun at the Broadway street, or explore Nashville and all of its great amenities, it's only a 15-20 minute drive or Uber away. So it really does provide me with a lot of opportunities. Again, growing up in small rural Iowa, moving to Nashville has been a big change, but a welcome change, because I get so many experiences outside of my great working experience. So it's been really good, a really a great fit for me, Tony.
Okay, yeah, we stayed downtown on just north of Broadway, and I was preparing for a marathon, so I got to run downtown there and got to see it in the morning before everybody woke up. And it actually the traffic is not bad at 5:30 in the morning. Broadway, Vanderbilt, that area,
Mhm.
but it sounds like it's a vibrant city and a great place to go. So if
Yeah.
somebody wanted to apply to your particular fellowship, I know there's just a couple of days left. We'll put this
Mhm.
podcast out today, but just January 1st, but maybe some P3s and other people that are maybe thinking about it. First of all, are there two opportunities for next year, or is that up to be decided? And then what do they need to do to apply?
Yeah, so it's been a great question. We are only recruiting for one position this year.
Okay.
That it may be subject to change, but only one for now. Applications are January 1st. It requires 3 letters of recommendations, CV, a cover letter, and then we have maybe 2 or 3 short essay questions for all the applicants to answer. You can send them directly to me, or all the information on there is fine. But I'd just like to mention, I have had so many great conversations with P4s and even P3s, and maybe you'll find this interesting, Tony, is I think there is a growing interest in, these non-traditional postgraduate learning opportunities. I've had so many great conversations with P4s, P3s, even P2s, and some even graduates that are working pharmacists about how do we learn more about these non-traditional, unique postgraduate training opportunities? And it's been so fulfilling for me just to help them understand that yes, while TPA in Tennessee has this great program that I would highly recommend to anyone that has any interest in it whatsoever. It's a growing opportunity. There's, depending on the year, there's anywhere between 8 to 12 states that have similar postgraduate training opportunities. Almost all the national pharmacy associations also have similar training opportunities. So, and the one kind of downside to that is it's not all centralized like the typical ASHP mass processes. So it does
Yep.
take a little bit more digging. But just anybody listening, if you're a P4 wanting to apply, yes, obviously get your applications in January 1st. But if you are any, a recent graduate or a P3 or P2, feel free to reach out to me, and I would love to have the conversation with you to not only tell you more about TPA, but you just know other unique opportunities out there for pharmacists. And I really feel like there's this change coming that we need to really help students understand all of the tremendous opportunities out there for a fulfilling pharmacy career. So that's what I have to say about that. But hopefully that answers your question a little bit, Tony.
No, it does. I'm in a non-traditional role. Nowhere in the job application did it say pharmacist for teaching and chemistry, and it's just something that we're allowed to do because we have 18 credits or more in a particular subject. And for anybody that doesn't know, if you have 18 more credits in either biology, chemistry, anatomy, phys, whatever, you're allowed to teach at the college level. Usually 100, 200, maybe 300 level classes. But I've asked you a lot of questions. If there's one thing you'd want to tell everybody that maybe I haven't asked you about, what would that be?
Yeah, I'd just say that if you do have any inkling of maybe you're not quite sure when you're leaving pharmacy school, or if you do have interest in these type of non-traditional spaces, I think um, both national and state levels both offer great opportunities. I think for me personally, a state opportunity just allows you to have so many experiences working in so many different areas within the association in pharmacy and healthcare in general. I spend large parts of my day working in continuing education. I work on the legislative aspects. I work on regulatory with the Board of Pharmacy. I work with government affairs. I work with member engagement. I work with our communications and in our social media. So it's an opportunity 1 year to build such a diverse skill set that's going to set you so well up for your career in the marketplace that I would highly encourage anyone to either apply for or reach out to me to learn more about the opportunity.
Okay. And what is the best email?
Yep, it's just Keaton. That's Keaton at TN, T as in Tom, N as in Nancy, farm, tnfarm.org. Keaton at tnfarm.org.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for being on the Pharmacy Residency podcast.
Yep, thanks, Tony.